how important is this currency of the standing ovations? I mean, I read this news blast, 15 minutes at Venice, another one is saying 13 minutes, the third one is saying 11 minutes. Is this the new currency of prestige for film festival?
It's ridiculous, but it's also useful. Is what I would say. Ridiculous because, of course, that's no measure of a film's quality, how long a standing ovation is, and we've seen standing ovations being kind of encouraged, shall we say, to go on and on and on. And yet, if it calls attention to a film that is of quality, then that still has some use value, but it shouldn't be the measure of quality.
My first question goes to you, Tricia. What is the goal of a film festival? What do we need to achieve these days to be relevant?
The goal of a film festival is to connect, at its most basic level, to connect filmmakers with audiences. I'm going to speak from an audience perspective here because we are a major audience festival, but I think even if you are not an audience festival, even would say that. It's about ultimately making sure that filmmaker can find its audience, launching films into the market, making sure that we keep a profile and a spotlight on a wide range of cinema that sometimes the market doesn't support in the same sort of way. I think those are the principal things that almost every film festival really holds close to their heart. To answer the second part of the question, how do we stay relevant? I think we continue to center audiences. I feel like that is absolutely critical, and really think about how we bring the next generation of film fans into cinema. I think we're going to talk about a lot more about how much the cinema landscape is changing, but there's a real opportunity, I think, to bring new young audiences into cinema.
Cameron, do you agree? This sounds very idealistic. Do we still achieve this noble goal?
We have to be idealists, I think, and I agree completely with Tricia. It's really about discovery, I think, in my view. We know that, let's say, if you take the Oscars, 14 of the last 15 Best Picture Oscar winners launched at film festivals. Festivals are still where audiences and the media and even the marketplace discover great new films, great new talent. Most of the filmmakers that audiences are most excited about around the world as filmmakers, as auteurs, are festival filmmakers whose careers were launched and nurtured by festivals. So I think there is still a real need for festivals, and there will be relevance so long as we stay attuned to what audiences are most interested in. We found in Toronto, I'm sure others would find the same thing, younger audiences are as interested in film as ever. There's always been a kind of pessimism about our young people not watching films anymore. They are absolutely watching a lot of films, and they often, apart from Letterboxd, I think the places they discover the most is at festivals.
Melissa, why do you go to festivals?
There are many reasons why we go to festivals. From my perspective, I've used festivals as a tool from, the acquisition stage to launching films to pushing out emerging talent, first-time, second-time filmmakers that we're representing, or to find those actual talent and emerging filmmakers from the different festivals. So there's a plethora of reasons why, on the industry side, the festivals are still very relevant.
Are festivals relevant for the Globes too? Cameron mentioned that 14 out of 15 Best Picture Oscar winners were launched at festival. How is it for the Globes?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Festivals are incredibly important for the Golden Globes. A lot of our voters attend the festivals. As Cameron said, we discover films there. I probably think we have now 400 voters from 95 different countries. They travel the world. They attend not only the major film festivals, but also a lot of the smaller film festivals. So they really discover a lot of film and also television, which you can also obviously have at the festivals. So they're incredibly important. And I think what I love about festivals personally is really discovering smaller films that you don't usually get to see. Yes, of course, the big films that then go on to win awards at the award shows. But I think the festivals are such a great platform to really discover a lot of diverse talent and smaller films that you don't get to see anywhere else.
I've attended film festival for more than 30 years, first as a critic, and now for 6 years I'm running a festival. I hear you, but my experience in the last years is slightly different. Yeah, it's still about movies, but there are a lot of factors coming into play. Politics, controversies. Cameron, you just finished your festival and you had The Road Between Us, a film that apparently you revoked the invitation and then there was a controversy. How do you make sure these controversies don't overshadow the whole rest? And do you feel that the press is still really interested in the movies, the new talents, or is it more about scandals and boycotts and political opinions?
It's a great question, and I think we're in the middle of a bit of a sea change. Certainly there's much more media coverage of the business of film, the business of the screen industry generally, than there used to be. This is now, it used to be just inside baseball, and only people who were in the industry followed the media about the industry. Now everybody does. And so that is affecting, I think, what happens at film festivals. Sometimes, internal workings end up in headlines in trade media. But I think it's also that we exist in the world. That, it's a much more polarized world politically than it was maybe years or decades ago, and we're a part of that. So current political conflicts will inevitably affect what happens at film festivals because we are participating in the overall climate that.
But how do you deal with it? Did you restructure your team? Have you more communication experts? Let me share an experience I made. We had the film Russians at War a year ago. World premiere at Venice. Positive reviews. 6 people at the press conference. Then the film goes to TIFF. Suddenly, it's a pro-Russian film, headlines all over the place. And the day it should have been showed here in Zurich, I had death threats. I was walking around with personal securities. We had to pull off the screenings. CNN was here. Hell broke loose because of a documentary film. How do you deal with such situations? How do you prepare for such moments?
I mean, I'll just say, I think we've all been through this at the Berlinale. I know you have been as well, Tricia, but in our case, I think there's maybe something specific about documentaries that are about current conflicts, Ukraine, Gaza. That's going to always be more of a hot button and will generate more controversy, and in some cases, threats, as we also received in Toronto. So I think we have to look at those a little bit differently than just a general landscape of film, where I don't think that this is as much of an issue. But when it comes to documentaries, as festivals, we have to protect that space for free expression, for artists to actually capture what's going on right now in the world, and for audiences to watch it with open minds. That's what we're here for.
But it's you need a lot of courage, and it costs a lot of money if you have these media waves coming over you and security issues. Does it impact the choice of films? When you leave the theater, you've seen a film that you might want to invite to Berlin. Do you think about what it could provoke in terms of conversations?
It hasn't happened to me yet that I've seen a film that I've really loved or my team has really loved and we've decided not to play it because it will bring too much chaos. If we see something we love, which we know is going to be a talking point, I think what we do is prepare for what kinds of talking points that might bring up and try to. I think the example you gave, it would be almost impossible to predict that was going to happen to you, particularly after seeing the Venice response and then watching the conversation around the film changed. But as Cameron said, it's a polarized world. There's always a risk of something like that happening. Much more predictable are some of the political hot button films that we're seeing, films from Israel, films from Gaza right now, from Palestinian filmmakers, or films that deal with that conflict. We know when we screen them, these are going to be conversations that we need to be prepared to have. But I think we believe that the Berlinale has always been a place that embraces sometimes difficult conversations, and I hope we never stop.
But what is your
films.
position? Are you the
Yeah.
platform for
Yeah.
political discussions, or are you an activist
Well,
in some way as well? Because the
I think-
Berlinale was
yeah.
always called the most political of the big fours.
I think that it comes back to the first question, which you quite rightly said is idealistic. I think we have a job to, right now, in this particular moment, to balance out these conversations so that we're still talking about cinema. Because in the last 5 years, the political and news agenda has taken over all of the airtime around film festivals quite often, and films aren't cutting through. So it's a very delicate thing to balance. I don't think of the Berlinale as the political film festival, but we are a city festival in a city that is very politically engaged. It's very diverse. It's historically, I've inherited a festival that has a personality, and I want to be true to that personality while also making sure that controversies don't take over all of the space for us to talk about cinema, because that's why we're here, is to make sure that discoveries of new film voices cut through, and not just the political talking points at a festival, which should and will rightly be there, but we have to find space for cinema as well.
Helen, how did the political zeitgeist hit the Globes? You were in a controversy too, considered not diverse enough, but you've made your homework and made the change in your organization. Please talk about your experience in relaunching the Globes.
The Globes had a bit of a rough patch for some time, but I think we worked through it, and we were happy to come out of it, I think better than ever before. But it was certainly a few years ago, the show was almost canceled. And we had to really, think about how we wanted to structure the Globes and how it should be run differently. I think, I don't think I would be here if we had not changed ownership of the Golden Globes. So I think, a big thanks to Jay Penske and Todd Bowley, who brought the Globes, back to a great award show. And I think, it took a lot of work.
And are you confident for the next show that it will be about the films and not so much about the institution itself?
Oh yeah, I think last year already, or this year I should say, was not about the institution. It was really about the award show. I think Nikki Glaser was an amazing host. We had a great show. I think all the award shows, in fact, have had a really great boost since COVID. We've not just seen it with the Globes, but also the Emmys and the Oscars. They've all done better than before COVID. So I'm very happy that people, want to see award shows again and engage with them. And I think especially, when we're talking about, politics and what's going on in the world, I think award shows are a great way to still, escape a little and to really enjoy and also have fun. I mean, at the Globes, we call it the party of the year. And it's because it's fun, We honor the finest achievements in film and television, but at the same time, we also, have fun.
Melissa, for how long have you been attending film festival, and how do you see the change? And
I've been coming to film festivals for over 20 years. In the beginning, it was more on the acquisition side. So it was, again, discovering new talent and finding voices. And it's shifted over the years, obviously. It's become a bigger industry tool. It's a resource for, sales agents, for financiers, for filmmakers, to get their films out there, to be highlighted, to be shown, to get emerging voices, a highlight that they would normally not get. And in terms of the bigger festivals, it's a launch pad for, some of the bigger titles for the year. But also, I feel like regional festivals are very important as well. It democratizes the access to the films that they normally would never get to see. for example, when we were working on Roma, it was very important that we showcase that film pretty much at every festival across the globe. We were going into regions that normally would not even have cinema or the infrastructure to see a film. We were using a regional festival called Eco Cinema, which would basically set up a generator and a projection system and take it into the regions of Chiapas in the jungles, and it was actually giving voice and showcasing art to people that normally would not ever have access to that. So I think the evolution of the film festival circuit over the years has gotten more important. And yeah,
And how do you prepare when you launch a film? Can you talk about a recent example? I don't know, Nuremberg or another film you've launched this year?
So Sony Pictures Classics obviously they have the US rights for that. So they were more instrumental in getting it to TIFF. But we sold the film out of Cannes the year before. We use festivals all the time to showcase our filmmakers. Especially big ones, Berlin, Cannes, Venice, and Toronto. We use them to basically, again, showcase the films that we're selling. We're also trying to find talent that we want to represent. So we use it for different things in general.
To close the political question, it's funny, I've written books on festivals, and for a long time, festivals fought to have politicians at their opening night. The chancellor should come, or the president. These days, you're not sure you want to have these folks attending, because depends on their opinion, what they're going to say into the microphones. Are you eager to have politicians at your signature events?
When they're film lovers, absolutely. We had our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, at the opening of the Toronto Film Festival just a few weeks ago. He happens to be a fan of John Candy. We had a documentary about John Candy opening the film. He talked about his love of John Candy, and his love of movies and growing up watching those films. That helped. So it's always good to find a bridge between what we do as presenters of film culture and what the politicians are interested in. And it turns out this year we had a great bridge.
Exactly the same answer. I think it doesn't serve, of course we want the support of the political community. We need the support of the community and welcome people as guests. But on stage, it really should be about cinema. It shouldn't be a political speech, but politicians are under pressure as well too. But as long as it stays focused on cinema, very happy.
Thank you. Film festivals and awards like the Globes or the Oscars, they had an important role in canonization of movies. A film would win the Golden Bear or the Palme d'Or, and it entered film history. And they got reviews. The critics were very important as tastemakers, and I remember first attending film festival in the 90s in Berlin. You had a packed Berlinale Palace in the morning with 2,500 critics, real critics, reviewers. Now the number of reviewers is declining. What does that mean for a festival? How important are they, and how do you deal with the decline of film criticism?
I think the number of accredited press hasn't changed. The nature and the sort of media landscape has completely changed. So you're right. Those sort of attention-centered broadsheet, international broadsheets, space in those publications that reach a wide audience and not just the industry, not just people who self-select and find this podcaster or this specialist film reviewer, that space where you can actually reach a general audience at a film festival has almost disappeared. That really worries me a lot, but we still have a lot. I don't think I want to look at what's your quote? The future is always brighter. But I think what we haven't learned how to do yet, which I hope we will, is to somehow have the noise elevate back up to a non-specialist audience from the festivals. It does eventually, the echo of a smaller film that might screen in the Berlinale and then go on to these great regional festivals. I hope we do build a buzz, but that lightning strike moment is harder and harder to achieve at any festival.
Yeah, I would just agree. Christian, like you, I was a film critic as well, and I saw that vocation really decline in North America. But I think that's okay so long as film culture survives. And so now it's not just film critics who do only that as a full-time career, but it's podcasters, it's so-called content creators, it's all different kinds of ways of extending the conversation about cinema. And I actually think more, at least in my experience, what I can see, more people are following cinema for their own interests as opposed to simply listening to the wisdom of film critics, let's say. So if you look at Letterboxd, if you look at social media generally, you look at Instagram, there are people who are amateur film critics, but they're very influential. And I think that's actually okay, so long as the debate, the discussion is being continued.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean for the Globes? I mean, your organization used to be the foreign correspondents who were interviewers and critics publishing mainly in the printed press and some for TV stations. Can a TikTok critic become a member in your organization these days?
No, they cannot. First of all, I'm very, very pleased that the media coverage around the Golden Globes has not declined. So that's really good news for us. This year alone, we had over 1 trillion global media impressions at the Golden Globes, so that was incredible. But of course, the form of journalism has changed. As you mentioned, there are now way more content creators, TikTok. Yes, the old school film critic maybe has declined a little bit. But at the Golden Globes, as you know, you are on our membership board of directors, we take only accredited journalists into our organization who then become a Golden Globe voter. And
but shouldn't we open up and let in? I mean, if Cameron says there are new forms of talking about cinema, why not let them in and make them voters? Because someone who has a YouTube channel or a big reach on Instagram might do more good for auteur cinema than a 65-year-old critic working for a declining newspaper.
Well, I mean, I would argue that there are still journalists out there who are doing, very good work, and they're doing it the old-fashioned way. But I'm not saying that the new media forms are not important. They are, and they're certainly getting the word out, and we have to look at how we're going to move forward and really, define what media means. I think there are a lot of changes, but I wouldn't discount the old-fashioned journalists.
Melissa, how important are the multiplicators for your business?
They're very important. Having those critic reviews, especially right after a festival launch, it's very important to have, the industry sort of back a film. We use that, again, as a tool to sell our films. So the more that we have critics praising the film, it'll give us, more leverage in the marketplace.
And I'll just say, I'm sure anyone who runs a festival will say we could always use more reviews of the films that we launch from accredited journalists. We had the film that had the longest standing ovation at our festival. We don't measure them, but I was there, and we had to actually stop the standing ovation so that we could start the Q&A. It was a film called Palestine 36 by Anne-Marie Jassir, which was making its world premiere in front of 1,800 people. And the next morning, I opened up all of the trades and was looking for reviews, and I didn't see them from a lot of publications. So, when a major film or a film that has significant impact launches, it's really important to have those reviews, even though, of course, we're always looking for the social media responses as well.
Tricia, working in a German language country, it's harder to get these standing ovations because Germans and Swiss too are bit not like Italians in a football stadium, is making waves in the theater a preoccupation of you?
No, not at all. And I think I agree with Cameron that I think anything that can elevate the noise around cinema I really welcome, but I also know very clearly these are a very localized phenomenon. And as you say, just because the German audience doesn't get up and clap doesn't mean they don't love it as much as an audience seeing it in Toronto. It's a different, sometimes national response. It's a different culture of cinema. It's the first time a film screens with a public audience, you know, I think you can't necessarily, I would love to see a study that, you know, draws a line between a film's first response and length of clapping and, you know, something that shows definitively that this can measure how successful a film's going to be.
But, you know, I'll just add, I think what we're seeing with the quantification of standing ovations is part of an overall trend to try to cover an art form like cinema like it was sports. It's the same reason that general audiences who are not in the industry know what the box office of given films are every weekend. It's just something that didn't used to be a part of the conversation and now very much is, because people are looking for numbers. They're looking for ways to quantify success, and standing ovations or box office or whatever it might be has become a kind of currency.
Award shows and festivals are one of the few moments where stars are available, where they hit the red carpet. And how important is the carpet and the star appearances? And I want to give you an example. I have a daughter, she's 11 years old, and to my pain, she doesn't know any film stars, but she knows every basketball player from the NBA because these players are so present on YouTube and social media, and movie stars kind of do less these days. It's very hard to get press conferences or 2 hours for roundtables. So how important is the carpet where they still make appearances?
Well, I mean, for our journalists, they're very important because, you know, a lot of the film festivals, that's where they get work, right? They get content. That's where they do interviews. So I always encourage the festivals to, you know, find ways to, you know, get the studios and talent to convince them to do more interviews at the festivals. Because as journalists are covering, it's also great for them. It's a great opportunity to talk to talent, talk to filmmakers. But yeah, it's been, I think that's been challenging. And I hear this from our journalists who attend the festivals, that they get less and less content work done at these festivals. So I do hope that will change, but you know, I know it's also hard to get talent to do something, right?
Why is this, Melissa? Why is it so hard?
We try. I think part of it is obviously, you know, they want to make sure that they are doing the things that do matter to boost the film's awareness. Sometimes if they have, you know, reticence to be on a red carpet, they might not want to do some of the interviews. Again, if there are political issues that they don't want to be asked about, if there are hot buttons that, you know, they might not participate in any kind of press that's around it. So I think it depends. It's case by case. It's talent by talent. But yeah, I think.
But still, you need to promote your movies. How do you make sure you get the message across? Do you substitute the interviews with some own initiative, or?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. You know, it's a combination of the marketing approach. If we can't get the publicity for it, we definitely try and do the marketing approach. If there's a way that we can have a more curated type of roundtable or press conference, then we work in that regard. But we do try to make sure that, you know, our talent are present where they can be.
I think there's maybe a challenge now with the authenticity. On social media, generally, you have to give the appearance of authenticity, whether that's constructed or real. And you know, I think the talent that are able to do that, I think will be comfortable. Ryan Reynolds is a great example. He was a producer of our opening night film in Toronto this year. And you know, he was everywhere, and he was genuine, and he was, you know, interacting with fans and with media and all that kind of thing. Not every star can do that. They're not all comfortable doing that. And when someone tries to force it, then it's even more visibly cringy, and you don't want that.
Are you active on social media yourself?
I stopped.
Why?
I was very active on what was then called Twitter. I loved it, and then Twitter changed, and same thing with Instagram. So, like for instance, in our case, if you're in a public role at a film festival, you might post about a film you're very excited about, an event that's happening at your festival, and then someone posts something like very aggressive politically in terms of their view of your organization, and then it's not so much fun anymore. So I'm off social media now.
And you, Tricia, do you use social media to...
I hate to
raise
say
awareness?
all the same things as Cameron, but it's exactly the same. I was on Twitter. I was a very, very, very active at London Film Festival. It was a great tool, really good to elevate conversation around cinema. It is toxic out there everywhere. And I actually had a year last year where I didn't look at social media at all during the Berlinale, and I had my best festival that I've had in a long time, because it was just about focusing on being there in the moment with the filmmakers and with the audience and the industry that were with me. And then you can reflect later. So,
talk about your relationship to the red carpet. You love doing that. How important is it?
I love doing it. I think audiences love it. I think I understand some filmmakers don't like to do it, and some filmmakers think that it's trivializing in some way, but I love it. And the kind of excitement that is generated in an audience when you have a good red carpet is you can't find that anywhere. And I think that's one of the reasons that talent and filmmakers still love going to festivals. It's not just to have that moment on the red carpet, but there's great publicity that emerges out of that. I mean, last year we had Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, and I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen the picture of him in the pink vest in the cold. It was like, that was incredible, solid gold for Searchlight, for the film. They're great moments, you know.
The red carpet is certainly one of the highlights at the Golden Globes, I would say. It's really fun.
And the carpet is important for the sponsors. I mean, we're running a festival here that it's 90% privately funded, and to make Mercedes happy, it's very important that they can bring the stars to the carpet and have great photos. Speaking of sponsors, financing our events has become very challenging indeed. Helen, you've made the change for a non-profit organization to a profit organization. How's it going? Do you find the sponsors who still want to fund an award show?
Yes, we do. I mean, we have great partners. We have long-term partners at the Golden Globes. But I think for us, the goal is not having the event heavily sponsored. That's never been a part of the Golden Globes. We've always been incredibly selective of who we're partnering with. It's not just, for funding. We have a great broadcast partner, CBS. We have a great relationship with them. So it's really not so much about sponsorship for us.
What about you running festivals? Funding topic? Okay, challenging?
I mean, it's always challenging, of course. Like many festivals, we're not for profit. We depend on various sources of revenue. Private sponsors are a big part of that, of course, but also philanthropic donors, our actual earned revenue from memberships and box office, government support as well. And we try to find a good balance among the various pillars of funding. I think depending too much on any one sector could be a risk, but if you've got a good balance, that seems to work well.
And how much is the budget of the Toronto Festival?
In Canadian dollars, we're about 50 million, whatever that conversion is right now.
And the part of private, of companies sponsoring the event?
It's varies between a third and 40%.
In Berlin, is it your job to find sponsors too?
Yes, I have a sponsorship team, but it's my job to help support them and talk about the program and get the sponsors excited. And I take that part of the job really seriously, and I like it. I like it as well. But we are similar. In case you were curious, we're around 33, 34 million, and about a third of that is sponsorship income. Not quite that much, but the rest, and earned income is around a third, and government is around a third, when things are in balance, but they shift very slightly every year.
In my experience, it's exciting to look for sponsors. There are those who are excited about cinemas. So sometimes you have to find the CEO or the marketing head who loves movies. And then there are others, they ask you, but isn't cinema dying? Does it have a future? Don't people just watch Netflix? What do you say, why festivals are still relevant when a lot of people seem to believe that movie theaters are dying?
Well, of course, you can often see the top Netflix films at festivals first. The Knives Out films have been premiering in Toronto, other places as well. So we remain relevant so long as we're where our audience is, as far as I'm concerned. And we show series, as you mentioned, Helen. So, you know, our audience is what our sponsors want to reach. And I think that's true of any major public film festival like the Berlinale as well. If you've got a large number of people who are excited culture consumers, you will find sponsors who want to reach them.
I'm going to wrap this up by asking the question of the title again. Very short answer, Melissa. Why are festivals and award shows in 2025 still relevant?
I think festivals are kind of the last bastion of where we can meet and exchange ideas and hold up a mirror to what's culturally going on. It's the place where film and cinema actually represents and interprets what is happening in the world at large.
Cameron, and don't say I agree, say something of your own.
I think festivals are where the art form meets the audience. That will always be relevant. And I think awards are how we find a consensus of value, and that will continue to be important.
Thank you. Tricia?
I agree, and I would like to say we haven't talked about here about the independent exhibition sector more generally, and festivals can and should. I agree with you, sadly, that we are the receding line fighting against, you know, a tide of a difficult exhibition market. I would love to see us all push out and really, really think more collectively about how we support independent cinemas. This is vital because we can't keep making so many films if we don't have places that audiences can go see them. And festivals are a type of circuit, but it needs to go beyond that.
Thank you. Helen? Why are the Globes and award shows in general still relevant?
So, like what you just said, it's a great form to obviously not only honor but also escape, you know, and entertain. But I want to make a little maybe sports.
It's interesting, the escape part, that's a difference to the festival, because if you talk about escapism, then you're more in entertainment. So you're...
I think award shows are a form of, it's a form of entertainment, right? And I think entertainment still takes you away a little bit. It takes you into different places, makes you think about different things. So it is maybe a little form of escapism. But I want to make a small analysis to the sports world too, because I think, like in sports, I think entertainment too, people like to win. And so I think award shows are important because people actually like to win, and we like to see people win. So when we honor the finest achievements in film and television, and now we added podcast to the Golden Globes, I think it's important, and winning is great.
That's a perfect ending. I thank you for participating, and I hope that all our institutions are winners in promoting cinema. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christian.